mbere ry'umuturage. Radio Imanzi 105.1 FM. Twese hamwe birashoboka.
Radio Imanzi 105.1 FM.
We got you updated. This is Radio Imanzi News in English.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. This is Radio Imanzi 105.1 FM, broadcasting from Kigali. Here are the news in English, brought to you by Alvin Omngari. The headlines. Dr. Dian Gashumba presents credentials to Iceland President Johannesson. Over 70 Rwandan vie to represent Rwanda for the East African Legislative Assembly. A legislator has proposed the bride price should be scrapped in order to prevent problems facing Rwandan families. Former Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta visited Goma to call for ceasefire amid intensified tensions. Tunisia's opposition leader was banned from traveling due to his dictatorship. We'll be back with news in detail. Welcome back. We excuse ourselves for the delay, but let's get back to the news. Rwandan Ambassador Nordic countries, Dr. Dian Gashumba, presented her letters of credence to President Gioni Johannesson of Iceland. During an official ceremony that took place at residence of the President of Iceland, Gashumba conveyed greetings of President Paul Kagame and provided President Johannesson with an overview of Rwanda's development progress and the strong commitment to improvement of lives of its citizens since the genocide against the Tutsi in 1994. The ambassador also highlighted the meeting the Rwandan Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Vincent Biruta, held with Icelandic counterparts on the sidelines of the Nordic African Foreign Ministers meeting held in June 2022 in Helsinki, Finland. The meeting focused on equality and commitment towards a better life for Rwandans. He said this is a common vision between the two countries and both put these visions into actions. Ambassador Gashumba informed President Johannesson that Rwanda is keen on strengthening its relations with Iceland, especially through trade and investment, tourism, fishing and education, and commended Iceland's global leadership in several of Rwanda's priority sectors, including human rights and gender equality. His Excellency Johannesson and Ambassador Gashumba pledged their commitment to further developing bilateral relations and strengthening cooperation between the two countries. The Gasabo Primary Court approved the plea to drop the prosecution against former Prime Minister Pierre-Damien Habumuremyi and authorized an out-of-court resolution of the dispute. The presiding court approved Daniel Bizima's request to withdraw his case against Habumuremyi during the ruling. Daniel Bizima had filed a complaint alleging that he hired out vehicles to transport workers for Habumuremyi but never received the 3,200,000 Rwandan francs he was due. At a hearing of November 2nd, Bizima's attorney informed the judge that the matter had been requested to be dismissed since the parties had reached an amicable resolution. In 2020, Habumuremyi was convicted and sentenced to 3 years in jail over the issuance of bounced checks. The prosecution said Habumuremyi had issued bounced checks worth of 170 million Rwandan francs to different people on behalf of his Christian University of Rwanda, and it's a private school he owned. After serving for 1 year and 3 months, Habumuremyi was released after he was granted presidential clemency and released on October 14th last year. Habumuremyi had been sentenced by the Nyarugenge Intermediate Court to 3 years in prison and a fine of 892 million Rwandan francs. He previously served as Education Minister and Rwanda's representative to the East African Legislative Assembly. He was also Prime Minister between 2011 and 2014. Habumuremyi also served as the chairperson of the Chancellery of Heroes, National Orders and Decoration of Honor until 2019. According to witnesses, some people who were injured into the collapse were treated in a nearby hospital. A witness, John Mooley, said it was at 2 p.m. when we noticed that the building pillars had begun to crumble, and then they started screaming to alert the people who were inside the building to escape, and some of them were managed to escape while others did not. Minister of Trade and Industry Jean Chrysostome Ngabitsinze speaks during the presentation of the report in Kigali. The new report, entitled Fostering Rwanda's Competitiveness, Resilience and Making the Most of Regional Integration Under the Post-COVID Era, recommends the country to address the present skills gap in various sectors in order to explore its full potential. The report comes at a time when the East African Community region was introduced mutual recognition agreements in 3 professional services, including accounting, architecture, and engineering services. According to the report, Rwanda will need to expand the number of qualified professionals for this to be achieved. Commenting on the observation, Roland Price, World Bank country manager, highlighted that Rwanda should consider pursuing further bilateral and multilateral agreements to improve the regulatory framework for digital services, leading and improve access to export opportunities. Bride price as a requirement for marriage should be scrapped in order to prevent problems facing Rwandan families, according to Leonard Ndagijimana, a member of parliament. In the Rwandan culture, the groom pays bride price before seeking a woman's hand in marriage. Some believe the centuries-old tradition has evolved into a price tag on the bride. The Ndagijimana made the observation when Jeanette Bayisenge, the Minister of Gender and Family Promotion, appeared before parliament to answer questions about problems facing the family. The Ndagijimana said the trend of family conflict and violence was a result of the fact that some couples are already burdened even before they tie the knot. He said, "We know very well the bride price is a burden to men who want to marry. The price has reached to over 1 million Rwandan francs. Minister Bayisenge said that the bride price is not necessarily the problem. Our laws do not determine bride price as a requirement for marriage. Bride price has a meaning in our culture and it's a sign of appreciation. Some parents today perceive it as the price tag for the girl, and that is where our efforts should be targeted in order to change the perception. The tradition itself is not the problem." We'll be back with economic news.
Economic news is a regular feature on Radio Imanzi. Economic news is a regular feature on Radio Imanzi.
The trading session recorded a total turnover of 271,000 Rwandan francs from 1,000 Bank of Kigali shares traded in one deal on the equities market, while the fixed income market remained quiet. Equities counters closed as follow: Brarirwa at 170 Rwandan francs, I&M Rwanda at 43 Rwandan francs, Simerwa at 120 Rwandan francs, MTN Rwanda at 175 Rwandan francs, Equity at 440 Rwandan francs, Kenya Commercial Bank at 370 Rwandan francs, National Media Group at 1,200 Rwandan francs, Uchumi Supermarket Limited at 104 Rwandan francs, and R&H Buffalo at 526 Rwandan francs. The exchange rate today, the United States dollar, the buying price was 1,043 Rand and francs, and the selling price was 1,064 Rand and francs. The British pound buying price was 1,226 Rand and francs, and the selling price was 1,250 Rand and francs. The euro buying price was 1,076 Rand and francs, and it was selling 1,097 Rand and francs. The Tanzanian shilling was buying 0.44 Rand and francs, and it was selling 0.45 Rand and francs. The Kenyan shilling was buying 8.5 Rand and francs, and it was selling at 8.7 Rand and francs. The Ugandan shilling buying price was 0.27 Rand and francs, and the selling price was 0.28 Rand and francs. The Burundian francs was selling 0.50 Rand and francs, and it was selling at 0.51 Rand and francs. We'll be back shortly with the international news.
Some items of international news on Radio Imanzi.
Former Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta visited Goma and Rushuru in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo and called for ceasefire amid intensified tensions. The former head of state also serves as a mediator for the East African community. Kenyatta said he was invited to the Joint Operation Coordination Center for pre-talks of the Nairobi meeting by the Kinshasa government. He has been in the country for 2 days. While briefing members of the media, he said the message we have today is that all groups who currently bear arms have to lay them down and choose the path of peace through dialogue, because there is nothing that can be gained through the barrel of a gun. While in DR Congo, the former head of state said had an opportunity to internalize a lot of engagements with MONUSCO leadership, stakeholders from affected region, members of parliament, diplomatic corps, and top government officials. Over 100 Congolese refugees have so far fled to Rwanda, and the Kigali government recently announced relocating them in the Kijote Transit Center in Nyabihu district. The leader of a Tunisian opposition party and prominent critic of President Kais Saied announced Wednesday he had been banned from leaving the country without any prior notice. Fadel Abdelkelfi, an economist and former minister, tweeted saying this morning at Tunis Carthage airport, "I was banned from leaving the Tunisian territory without having been previously notified of any judicial decision." According to this party, this legal measure is further evidence of the tightening of political control and the accelerated drift of the regime of President Kais Saied to a dictatorship. Affect Tunis also denounced a repressive procedure that is part of the instrumentalization of state apparatus to repress the opposition and target political figures. Several NGOs and political parties accuse President Saied, who has taken full power since July 25th, 2021, of repressing freedoms in Tunisia, of wanting to restore an authoritarian regime. The Ugandan President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni announced on Wednesday that lockdowns in 2 districts have reduced the spread of Ebola cases in the country. The updated toll points to 141 confirmed cases since the start of the outbreak in late September, that around 55 people have died of the disease. Using his Twitter account, President Museveni declared cases have now reduced during the second 21 days restriction, 1 to 2 cases per day. Progress in Kasanda has been slow due to lack of cooperation. In Mubende, for 18 days, we did not get a case. On November 5th, the government extended the containment measures taken in mid-October in the district of Mubende and Kasanda in central Uganda, and epicenter of the disease. The African Development Bank projects a recession in East Africa's economy in 2022, followed by a recovery in 2023. The African Development Bank has released its latest East African economic outlook, predicting a slow recovery in the region in 2022 at 4.0% against 5.1% in 2021. The slowdown is due to the lingering effects of COVID-19, the negative effects of geopolitical tensions, particularly the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, climate change, a destruction locust invasion, as well as regional disputes and tensions. The report says countries in the region have experienced heightened inflationary pressures, particularly on food, fuel, leading to rising cost of living. This has resulted in weakening national currencies, floods and drought, contraction in agricultural production, depressed business activity, and tax revenue has been decreased. Tanzanian Finance Minister Dr. Mwigulu Lameck Nchemba said the report was timely considering the current cost of living, which is of concern to every citizen in the region. The minister added more needs to be done. He added that there is more need to be done to accelerate the development of sustainable infrastructure, including renewable energy, to support industrialization and catalyze inclusive growth. He called for mobilization of additional resources to expand energy access, observing that the Democratic Republic of Congo was endowed with immense renewable energy resources to light up the entire continent. A residential building under construction collapsed on Tuesday 15th in Kenya's capital, Nairobi. Construction workers are feared trapped under the rubble and rescue operations have begun. According to witnesses, some people who were injured during the collapse are being treated in a nearby hospital. A witness, John Muli, said it was 2 p.m. when we noticed that the building's pillars had begun to crumble, and then we started screaming to alert the people who were inside the building to escape. Some of them managed to escape while others did not. An audit by the National Construction Authority found that 58% of the buildings in Nairobi were unfit for living. Building collapses are common in Nairobi, where housing is in high demand and unscrupulous developers often bypass regulations. Mozambique has started exporting its liquefied natural gas, LNG, from Cabo Delgado province. Islamist extremists have been a problem in the area up until 2020, when military efforts to subdue the area were started by Rwandan and Mozambican soldiers. The first gas export left on Monday, November 14th, and are headed for Europe, which is experiencing disruptions in its energy supplies as a result of the conflict between the Ukraine and the Russia. President Filipe Nyusi is reported to have described the first shipment as historic. The gas extracted by Italian energy firm ENI was exported by a British cargo ship, and Mozambique discovered natural gas in the coastal region of Cabo Delgado in 2010, but efforts to extract it were downplayed by years of terrorist attacks which killed over 4,000 people. In July 2020, Rwanda sent troops to Cabo Delgado at the request of the Mozambican government to combat militants. Hundreds of thousands of displaced people have been able to return home as a result of the joint efforts between Rwanda and Mozambique, stabilizing the majority of the province. Mozambique aspires to rank among the top gas exporters in the world thanks to the gas discovery. With that, we come to the end of today's program. The headlines once again. Dr. Dian Gashumba presents credentials to Iceland President Johannesson. Over 70 Rwandan vie to represent Rwanda for the East African Legislative Assembly. A legislator has proposed the bride price should be scrapped in order to prevent problems facing Rwandan families. Former Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta visited Goma to call for ceasefire amid intensified tensions. Tunisia's opposition leader was banned from traveling due to his dictatorship. Thank you for staying with us. Stay at the frequency for more programs. This was Alvin Umngadi. Have a wonderful night.